Hello, good morning to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well. So in today's class, we are going to learn about copy constructor. So a copy constructor is a member function that is used to initialize an object of a class with another object belonging to the same class, right? Again, I'll repeat it. A copy constructor is a member function used in order to initialize an object of a class with the value of another object of a given class, right, of the same class. Now just see, let us try to understand copy constructor with the help of an example. So here what I have is I have a class complex where we have the data members as real and imaginary, and in the public section of the class I have the constructors placed. So we have three different versions of constructors. You see, we have three different versions of the constructors. So first is a default constructor, second one is a parameterized constructor, and third one is a copy constructor. So here just see, now what I have here in this case, I do not have any initialization, so this is a very simple default constructor. So here I have provided a parameter x. Now x is getting initialized to the real part as well as imaginary part. So since real and imaginary are the private members, so what we cannot do is we cannot use the member access operator or the object in order to access real and imaginary. So what I'm doing is I'm using the member function to access real and imaginary. So I'm reading a floating point value x, and I'm placing the same floating point value in real and imaginary both, right? Now I have a copy constructor that is capable of copying the content of the object into the real and imaginary part of another object. So here just see, here what I'm passing is I'm passing a reference to a variable. So x dot real will be copied into real of another object. X dot imaginary will get copied into imaginary of another object, right? So just see, this is the way how it actually works. So now here, again I'll repeat it. So here in this particular constructor, I'm passing a reference to a particular object of class complex, right? Okay. Now x dot, the value of real of x is getting initialized to the real part of a object, and x dot imaginary of the object x is getting initialized to the imaginary part of another object, right? Okay. So here this real and imaginary will be another object, part of another object, where the value of x is getting initialize x dot real and x dot imaginary. Now what I have is I have a public function that is called as put data, that will put the result, that is real plus imaginary. So because it's complex number, so it is a plus ib form, right, in the form of a plus ib. So now what I have is I have a friend function that is capable of returning a complex object of type complex, and it's capable of adding two complex numbers. So this is a friend function, right? Okay. So now I've defined the friend function in a manner, so it takes in two objects, so c1 and c2. So I have declared an object c3. So to c3, what I've done is c2 real part of c3, I have initialized the sum of c1 and real part of c1 and c2, and to the imaginary part of c3 I have initialized with the sum of imaginary part of c1 and c2, and then what I've done is I've returned c3. So since it's capable of returning a variable of type complex, so I'm returning c3 here. Now just see, again I'll repeat the way how the class is being built. So we have two private members, real and imaginary, and in the public section we have three constructors. One is the default constructor, one is a parameterized constructor, and one is a copy constructor. Right. So here using the parameterized constructor, I'm initializing the values of the real and imaginary belonging to a particular object, right? Again, here I'm placing the same value, and then to a constructor, what I'm doing is I'm passing the reference to a variable, and using that reference I'm initializing the real and imaginary of some other object, right? Then I have a function that is called as put data, that will put the result into the output stream, and I have a friend function that is capable of taking in two variables of type complex, where complex is a class, and it's capable of returning a variable of type complex, right? So here what I've done is I've declared a variable c3, where to c3's real and imaginary part, I've assigned the sum of c1 and c2's real and imaginary part, right? So I'm returning c3. So now here what I have done is I have defined my main function. So as we have learned in the previous class, so this is an implicit call. Right. Now just see here, what I'm doing is I am copying the content of object A to another object, right? Okay, so just see, I'm using a copy constructor. So what I'm doing is I'm passing the value of A, right? Okay, and I'm getting the b initialized, you see here. So this is the way how it basically works. So in the previous class we've learned about how to implicitly call and explicitly call, right? Okay, so what I've done is I've made an implicit call here, right? Okay, implicit call here. So first 1.5 will be provided. So 1.5 will be initialized to real and imaginary part. Then I'm passing a reference to, I'm passing a, and then that a will be used, value of a will be used in order to initialize the real and imaginary part of b. Then what I'm doing is to c, I'm initializing the sum of a and b. So add is a friend function here. So to add, I'm passing a and b. So a will get copied to c1, b will get copied to c2. I'm adding the real and imaginary part of a and b and initializing it in c3. So I'm returning c3. Now c3 is being received by c here. Okay, now that c is getting copied to d. So I'm printing the value of c as well as printing the value of d. So it will give me the same result. It will give me the same result. So for example, if you so here I provided 1.5. So 1.5 will be copied to real and imaginary parts. So it will be 1.5 plus I 1.5. Okay, that is getting copied to b. So a and b both will be 1.5 plus I 1.5. And then whenever I'm adding a and b, so it will be 3 plus I3. So c will be 3 plus I3, d will also be 3 plus I3. So this is the way how what we can do is we can make copy constructor work. So you can have an explicit call or you can have an implicit call. So try out this particular program with explicit call as well. Okay, so then it will be very easy for you to understand the working of the program. Now let us try to understand multiple constructors in a class. So this we have already discussed in the previous class as well, right? We will not be elaborating it further. So here what we have is we have multiple constructors. Okay, so we have a default constructor, we have a parameterized constructor, right? Okay, we have a default constructor, we have a parameterized constructor. So here just see in the previous case what we had done, we had taken up x and initialize same value to the real and the imaginary part. We have another function here, complex, where different values are taken into consideration. So just see, it's capable of adding, again, it's capable of adding two complex numbers. So you see here what we have again done is we have again called made an implicit call to the constructor, right? So 1.5 and 1.5 will be separately assigned to, right, real and imaginary part. In this case, in the first call, in the second call, what it will do, it will assign same 1.5 to both the, look, right? So then I have a variable c of type complex being declared. So c is initialized with the return value of add a comma b and c dot put data. So here what we are basically trying to do is we are basically trying to present that we can have multiple types of constructors in a given program. And we have made a slight change here where we have defined a parameterized constructor that takes in different values as well. So you can execute this particular program, you can alter the values and see how the program execution basically goes about. Now let us come to the concluding section of this particular chapter, that is called as a destructor. So destructor is a member function which destructs or deletes an object. So here as it is given in the literature, it calls destruct, but it's actually not destruct, but it deletes the content of the object, right? Okay, so the destructor is a member function that deletes an object. So a destructor function is called automatically when the object goes out of scope. That means when the function ends or the program ends or a block containing local variable ends, a delete operator is called. So these are the instances when destructor function is automatically called. If the function ends or program ends or block containing local variable ends or delete operator is encountered, right? Now syntax as simple as that of so here what we have is we have the tilde, right? Again, so this is called tilde, then the constructor name. Okay, so this is the way how what we do is we call the destructor, right? Again, now properties of destructor. So destructor function is automatically invoked when the objects are destroyed. It cannot be declared as static or constant. The destructor does not have any argument. It has no return type, not even void. A destructor should be declared in the public section of the class. The programmer cannot access the address of the destructor. Now, these are some of the essential properties of the destructor. So, automatic destructor is automatically invoked when the function is when the object is destroyed. It cannot be static or constant. It cannot have any argument. It cannot have any return type. It is declared in the public section, and programmer cannot have an access to the address of the destructor. So, this is all about destructor, right? So, the important thing that you need to remember about destructor is that when is destructor called, automatically called. So when the program ends, when the function ends, when the block containing local variable ends, and the delete operator is encountered. So in today's class, what we have learned about is we have learned about how to what is a copy constructor. We have learned about how to use copy constructors, right? We have cited a very simple example of adding two complex numbers using constructors. Okay, we have learned about there are different ways of calling a constructor. They can be explicit call or implicit call. So since in all the programs that we have discussed, we have placed implicit call. You can replace the implicit call with the explicit call and see how it actually works. Okay, and then we have learned about having multiple constructors in a particular class. We have reframed the same example, including different types of constructors, and we have tried to see what would be the result, right? And then we moved on to destructors. We've learned about what is a destructor. You learned about when a destructor is actually called and what are the properties of the destructor. So destructors. So this will end the sixth chapter that we have. So thank you very much. Have a very good day.